Many years back, when there was a guy who had chained himself outside Vigilance House, big chain, big padlocks, and he was shouting there and saying all those things. And, you know, the news was brought to a news desk and we were all laughing and saying, "Huyu jamaa anataka nini?" Anaongea tu anasema mambo mingi. Yeah, but so what is the story? What's the story here? What am I going on air with? You know, he was calling for justice, he's talking about extrajudicial killings, he's talking about reforming the police service, and so on and so forth. That man is Okiya Omtatah.
Yes.
He's our guest. Okiya, good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Paul, when you go, the lifts still have
the tear gas,
so
the remnants of tear gas.
Unakuja, but inafungwanga sinuses, so that's the flip side. Clears the sinuses. Yeah.
Yake bado iko kwa lungs pia. Inatoka tu.
You're taking always look on the bright side of life quite literally.
Because no, what else are you going to do? You're just like...
And you're given lemons.
Yeah. You're like, my nose has never been this clear.
Paul Esana.
Jano,
yes.
Please welcome him with the day's quote.
I will. I'll welcome him with the day's quote, which comes from Zimbabwe, all the way in Zimbabwe. And it was said that the name of the youth organizer, I think because it was a rallying call from many of the youth organizers back in 2018 when they were going through their own transition and unrest and uncertainty. We are not fighting for a perfect country. We are fighting so that our children don't have to. Reflect on that for us.
Yeah, that is how it is, because even that's the natural order of things. You know, like right now, what is happening right now is that naturally a parent is supposed to nurture a child. And right now you can see what is happening with us in terms of debt. A debt is a postponed tax. So we are like, our children are feeding us. Because we are borrowing ahead, so they'll have to pay those debts when we are not there. So I think that whatever proverb is quite, that quotation is quite apt, because even on the street, what the people were doing yesterday was to try and see that the future is good. It's not about themselves largely. It's about the future, because they look forward and they see the hopelessness. You find right now the default in Kenya today is that children are going to be poorer than their parents. When it's supposed to be the natural order of things is the other way around.
That's true.
You walk bare feet, your child will wear slippers. You wear slippers, your child will wear shoes. Basics like those. But now in Kenya it's the reverse, because there's hardly any future. If you have to go back, assuming you had some piece of land or something, you'll have to break it up to the number of children you have. So your children will definitely be poorer than you.
Wow.
So we have failed to create new wealth. We have got a ruling elite who believes in stealing whatever there is, and maybe, as you see, some of these odious debts, then they export it out. Instead of using it to build the foundations of a great nation tomorrow. If you look at all these big countries, you find there was a generation that made sacrifices to lay the foundations upon which then the big country emerges. Whichever way they did it, there had to be some form of capital acquisition, there had to be some form of investment, a culture of savings and everything. Right now, when the government takes all the taxes, all the money, everybody has no disposable income. What kind of country are you trying to build? Then you look at the money, the last calculation we did, out of every 100 shillings, 82 goes to pay a loan. Loans which never came here to do anything, which we don't understand. So we must get up to a point whereby we realize that Kenya must have a balance sheet. And the balance sheet must be black, not red. Yeah.
You know, when that's very profound. When Eric was introducing you just now and talked about how, you know, you would chain yourself and everything, it must have been quite solitary. And I'm just wondering, why don't you think, because I'm sure if you did that today, everybody would join you. Well, a lot of people would join you in that protest. Why do you think people didn't see then what you saw, which is also what is affecting us now? Because when you were doing it, you saw something. You saw what was happening then, and you saw what could happen. Why do you think the rest, a lot of other people couldn't see it?
Well, sometimes you given we're able to discern things differently. Like, remember when we were swearing in Mr. Ruto to be president of Kenya, I noticed one thing. He put the constitution aside and he raised the sword. And I remember now when Jeff Koinange, he told, just 2 days later, it said that was a very dangerous sign. Wow. That this man believes in the sword, not the law. And you can see today, he's put the law aside and he's using the sword to govern. I said it, I just noticed that. And this issue that is happening today is something I think in 2008, we did something with the Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u. She's now Supreme Court judge. Yes. And we're addressing the question of the youth bulge and how it needs to be addressed urgently. Otherwise, it leads into anarchy and needs to be managed. But nobody paid attention to anything. Life continues as usual. So that day when I went to the police station, you remember something similar to what happened yesterday. It happened. They had banned live broadcasts. I needed to address the nation. So I went to the Basilica and I prayed and I said, give me an idea how I can do this. When I finished, I went home and slept. And in the morning I woke up with a very clean idea. So I was able to address not just the nation, I addressed the world. And that day, they had declared a curfew in Nairobi. They put a ring of fire around the Uhuru Park and what. But they left their headquarters for us. So I went and captured their headquarters.
You went outside Vigilance House and you actually put chains on yourself and you chained yourself on the fence. Are you saying that no officer was seeing you doing that?
I tried to look at how they had, they have the cameras. Cameras were
the
like
CCTV.
The CCTV.
There was a blind spot.
And I did some mathematics and I saw my blind spot. That's why I came through and they didn't see me.
Hey, that's discernment and plus something else. Plus. I don't know if that's training mahali, but I want to see.
Even the day when we went and locked up Ongeri's office with the big chain. APs went through a lot of trouble. They thought we had bribed the APs to allow us to carry that 78-kilogram chain, steel chain into the place, but we did not. What we did, we just packed it with magnets. And that thing, the thing they use for trade, we just went silent, so like we're carrying a loaf of bread. There's a bit of science just beats this nonsense of these people.
I need to kill him to angle.
Discernment, akili alafu, Holy Spirit na kuongelesha.
Yeah, and then you say what we complained about, all those things. Yeah. You can see how they're coming home to roost.
Yep.
And even like yesterday, there was a very big pressure for people to march to State House. One of the reasons I was sitting down and attracting the crowd was to stop that march because I knew people were going to be killed. And I didn't want another life lost when we were commemorating the death of other people. Right. The other thing is that Kenya should avoid an uprising. We should have a revolution. This anger must be channeled to a revolution, not to an uprising. Because the danger with an uprising is that it's chaos. And organized groups, can be organized groups of thugs, will come in and take state power. And you can see where Sudan is. Because Sudan was not able to harness the anger of the people and to guide it away from being an uprising to being a revolution. Both of that crowd was to march to State House and then people are shot. And of course, those shooting will run away when the flood is big. And then the power is taken in a chaotic manner. You don't know what will result. You can end up jumping from the fire to the frying pan, as they say. From the frying pan to the fire, as they say. So it was important that we manage this anger, this demand for good governance. We manage it in a very clever way so that using the Constitution, we are able to engineer a revolution. And that revolution will have to begin with the politics of the day. And that's why people must be registered as voters. And once they are registered as voters, we prepare to go to elections and make sure we are monitoring each election. Even a simple thing like demanding that all polling stations, when the IBC publishes them, it must publish them with the GPS coordinates. So that we can go in every ward, we can say, okay, in this ward, these are the polling stations gazetted, download the app, move around the GPS and confirm that they exist.
Right.
Because last time you learned of fake
polling stations.
Polling stations that came up with fake primary schools, and the fake schools had also been funded to create that impression that they really exist.
There's
and
one that has a gate.
And right
That's
now,
it.
yes, and right
It's a
now,
gate.
President Ruto is looking for one thing. He knows the only way he can win is to rig. Now, the only thing he's looking for is to create an impression that he has a chance to win. That's why you see he has been falling all over Raila, trying to do everything, thinking that he will get the Luo vote. But Raila is now like a god whose shrine, a shrine whose god has died. You go to worship there, you're wasting your time. His time is gone, he's done his good part. What is left is for him to have an exit plan, which is, I think, is messing up by thinking he's going to exit on the shoulders of Ruto. He can't. Otherwise, unless he's going to deny his history. So right now, Ruto is fighting just to create an impression that he can win. And with that impression, he will do the biggest, or attempt the biggest rigging that you can ever think of. So, you see what he did with the IBC? He wants to delay the appointment of commissioners. He wants to block a number of things. That's why they did what they did. You see what the kind of people got cleared. Some did not apply, some did not whatever, because he knows that you do that, you go to court. You go to court, we block it. So at the very end, he can then spring a surprise on us by concocting an IBC and then put it there. We were saying, give us whatever you give us. Right now, what we want is to get people registered. And we have got 1,450 wards. We want to fight a war in each of those wards with the young people. We want to come up with voters, come up with candidates. And engineer a revolution that is geared towards full implementation of the Constitution. Not installing anybody as the Messiah. We don't have, we cannot, the Kenyan situation does not call for a Messiah.
No.
We already have a blueprint, which is the Constitution. Get ahead. Like I've always been crying, the Constitution requires us to separate the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury. During that swamp, once you do that and you get an independent person running the Treasury, away from politicians, you do two things. You restore the power of Parliament. Because the only way you can access that money is through the budget. You see, right now, Parliament is powerless because the Treasury is the President. If you look at the law, they say that the Treasury is the Minister for, I think that's Section 11 of the Public Finance Management Act. The Treasury is the Minister for finance and the CS Finance and the PS Finance. Who appoints these two people?
The President.
The President. And whose pleasure do they serve?
The President.
The President. So, who is the Treasurer? Is the President. So, the idea that the power of the past has been taken away from Parliament and vested in the Presidency is the root cause of the problem we have, because you have created an imperial presidency that cannot be checked. That's why you find even now the president goes and borrows money. They just go to China. Who is he? The law does not allow him to borrow any money. The law requires borrowing to be in the budget. And all these loans that are accumulating are not budgeted for.
And they should start from there.
They should start from there. And that's why we want to get a revolution to get around this country, to educate people, to have them understand what the components are. You look, people delegated power to to Parliament, to the executive, and to the judiciary. All those spaces have been captured. If you have a very serious case, the judiciary will mess it up. Because either they fear something or the state has an issue on them, but...
Or they'll be intimidated.
And you'll find that you work very well in the lower courts. The upper you go, and despite you get to the Supreme Court and the thing is just massacred and there's no logic. There's nothing in the decision they make other than just political decisions to protect the establishment.
What's happening?
So
looking at what was happening yesterday, Senator, hundreds of thousands of people, mostly youth, came out to protest across the country.
Yeah.
Right? And we've counted here 27 counties where protests took place. It ended up in death, 9 killed, 60 arrested. In the grand scheme of things, many more people went back home. But there was that public anger and outpouring of emotion yesterday. What from you as a parliamentarian and as a leader, what do you hear that anger to be about?
First of all,
exactly, what are the main issues? If you were to crystallize them and say, the 3 big issues that are making hundreds of thousands of people stop what they're doing and go to the streets are this.
First of all, let me condole with the families of those who lost their lives, and have just seen 9 people were killed. And me, I was with a group of young men. So when we were sitting down there, there's a police vehicle that the vans, the police trooper, the Toyotas were driving across, the Land Cruisers. They opened fire using live bullets. Today, see the group I was sitting down with on Kenyatta Avenue opposite Teleposta. And those boys fell on me, and 4 of them sustained bullet wounds through the shoulders. 4 of them sustained bullet wounds. 3 in the shoulders, and 1 through the groin. Just where the penis meets the scrotum, there's a bullet which went through there and exited through this leg. So they were taken to hospital. Now, we were sitting down. Why would those policemen use live fire on us?
Right.
And those boys not to fallen on me, were they targeting me? That's the question you have. So the idea that you cannot protest in this country must go. So why are people protesting? The people are protesting for a very simple reason. It's not even 3. It's just 1. Good governance. Let's give for good governance. Good governance goes through all these things: police brutality, the extrajudicial killings, and all these things. People want this country to be governed by the law. People are resisting one thing. What Ruto is trying to add in the name of this Kenya country. You know, Kenya is called the Republic, Republic of Kenya. Ruto is trying to introduce one word before the word Republic. He's trying to introduce the word banana. And the people are resisting that. They don't want this country to be a banana republic. He has already thrown us into the debt trap. Him and Uhuru threw us into the debt trap from about 2.7 trillion shillings since the independence of debt that they inherited from Kibaki. By 30th November last year, they had exponentially grown to about 13 trillion. So, and you can't see the evidence of what that money did.
Yeah.
We never used to go for commercial loans. They began going for commercial loans. They changed the law in 2014 to allow them to bank the proceeds of loans offshore instead of that money coming into the consolidated fund, so that Parliament could appropriate it.
Yes.
So they have kept on whittling Parliament at a point whereby Parliament is really a toothless bulldog. That's why you see whenever the president is on a public function, be it a funeral or a national day, the local politicians
We'll all be there.
Will be there, and they'll be
singing praises
and begging. With a beggars, but please do for us this, do for us this. Yet, in the design of things, they're supposed to have those things in the budget, which they give the president to implement, and he has to implement or not. So, what the people are crying for.
So one thing you've said is good governance.
Just good governance.
Yeah.
Second thing, or are there any other?
No.
No, he said it's just...
The main one is the good governance.
The umbrella.
Good governance. Once you implement this constitution and allow the institutions to be rolled out, a lot of the issues we want will be sorted out.
They will. It seems that there's deliberate move. Okay, it's not just the lack of good governance. It seems now we're shifting to the other side, because being complacent or not acting is one thing. But now we're seeing whether it's goons, walking side by police and marches. You're seeing women also being targeted specifically, right? People saying they were told, go stab 2 or 3 women to send a message, and the use of sexual and gender-based violence. Now it seems like we're now moving to that other side. We are moving towards election day, but how do we keep them in check in the meantime? Because they're going from towards an extreme.
Yeah, from one extreme to another almost.
Yeah, because they want to foment chaos. As I said, they want to add the word banana. So that when there's no rule of law, nobody's held accountable. Yeah, then now they can stay by force of arms. They can rule through militias, which they are trying to do. You saw the other day when they brought out the goons, non-state actors. They want to use non-state actors to hold on to power because they have lost legitimacy. And this is delegated power, which they want to resist using according to what the law says, which the Constitution requires that the power should be exercised according to what the Constitution provides. But they want to govern without the Constitution. They want to govern against the Constitution. They are even trying to mutilate the Constitution through what they call the NADCO process. That's a process that was designed to mutilate the Constitution to eliminate the checks and balances that you have in that Katiba. And so, to me, the script they have is to take Kenya back. And you know, it's a neo-colonial script. What is happening? Kenyans are trying to birth the Second Republic, a republic that is not neo-colonial, a republic that does not depend on the World Bank and the IMF, which were institutions created by the colonizers. When the IMF was set up, all of Africa was colonized. When the World Bank was set up, the entire Africa was colonized. Even the United Nations, when it was set up, the global south was colonized by the same characters. So they set up a world order that benefits them. And some of these are for blocking local economies or local countries from exiting. So they came in with a debt trap. And was it not for Ruto's being very, very, very careless? He was the poster boy of the West. He was going to deliver Kenya into their jaws. He was the poster boy of the West. And so somehow I don't think that withdrawn their support from him. They may just have withdrawn their open association with him. But looking at it, he's trying to create that perfect neo-colonial state whereby their people are subjects, not citizens.
Right.
You are subjects. You exist for the sake of the government of the day. Like it was under the old constitution, it was even declared that the sovereign power was in the president. In this constitution, we shifted that the sovereign power is in the people. So that fight that the sovereign power is in the president is what Ruto is trying to reinstate. And he's doing that through the use of brute force. Like these killings, or even the blocking of the demos in Nairobi.
We'll come back in just a moment to continue on what you're saying and really just address these issues around police brutality, some of what happened yesterday, some of what you experienced, and other matters that are of massive national interest now, especially as we're trying to push towards a just Kenya. In just a moment, we'll be back on Fixing the Nation on NTV Kenya and Nation FM in conversation with Senator Okiya Omtatah.
Welcome back. Our conversation continues with the senator from and for Busia County. He is here, Okiya Omtatah. We are reflecting on what was happening yesterday. Police state, policing, and just good governance. Why were the people out on the streets in such high numbers? Okiya, you started by telling us one of the things that you'd like to just send a message to the country is to understand the difference between an uprising and a revolution and heading us towards that direction. I was expressing myself earlier this morning and saying, I was looking at what was happening yesterday and I'm a bit concerned. I'm a bit concerned with everybody, with leaders at political level, with leaders at community level, and with all of us as citizens on we are expressing ourselves and how far are we pushing this and whose responsibility is it to channel this in the right direction. You said we need to find a way to channel this emotion that we have so that it doesn't go the uprising route, which is ungoverned, can then be taken advantage of by unscrupulous people who come in and install themselves as leaders. But we channel it towards a way in which we get to the good governance that we are seeking.
Right.
Yeah.
Who takes the reins of leadership? Who guides us into the right direction?
I think this is now the time when leadership must be distinguished from political office and politicians. There are many people in this country who understand what the law says. These people should come up in the various spaces they occupy and educate Kenyans on what the law of Kenya is. For a simple thing like a presidential election, the law requires that it must terminate at the constituency. We must have 290 results at the constituency, which you people in the media or anybody with the capacity to have presence in all the 290 constituencies can pick up a calculator, add, and then do some divisions, and then declare, just the way you have declared the demonstrations, how they went in 25 counties and whatever. So that's how it is supposed to be, a simple thing like that. The other thing, a simple thing about the architecture of our money, the requirements for a balanced budget, the requirements that the power of the purse be in Parliament, the requirements that we need a sovereign fund, because there's a clear requirement in Article 201C that we must take care of the future. So basically, we must have a sovereign fund to teach people what the national interests of the country are. What are the national interests of Kenya? Even in the national anthem, if you look at it, a small statement like Kenya is Tahili Heshima. What does that mean? How will we achieve ile Kenya ambayo inastahili heshima? What needs to be done to get there? That's the vision of what our destiny is. It's codified in the national anthem. Somebody did the hard work. He thought it out for us. So the leadership must come out in civil society. Even politicians should distinguish between their role, the elected roles as representatives of the people, and come down and help do the civic education to enable the country appreciate that we have a law. We need to go by the rule of law and get, for now, what is given the kind of the mindset Ruto has, utadu. The thing now is to focus people on registering for IDs, to focus people registering as voters.
But Okiya, would that forestall people from coming out tomorrow? And tomorrow, when you're not where you were yesterday, finding people attempting to go to State House, like you said, and you said, if people had gone to State House yesterday, there'd have been mass shooting of people. And then there'd have been more people. And, leading into an overpowering of those that are shooting. And getting into storming of, like we've seen. So a Bangladesh situation.
Sri Lanka.
And then a Sri Lanka situation. Then what? Right? And then the question that you're asking is, so after all that has happened, then you'd find that other people would emerge and come and claim to be the ones who are leaders.
And the best example
necessarily
is
not the right leaders. So how do we then guide that towards it not happening that way, but it happens in another better way?
Yeah, that's what we need to tell
outcome.
people. Need to say that there's a possibility. Get the public debt. We have done some big work with some fraud auditors, and we have been able to establish how money was looted in this country. We have got clear information from government documents. We are saying that these people, we need to vote them out and hold them accountable under the law. We need to show people that the elections have been rigged. Even if you look at Mr. Ruto's certificate with which he went to, he was sworn in. An issue I raised in my petition, but was never dealt with by the Supreme Court. The mathematics on face of that petition is wrong. If you put that thing on the spreadsheet, you get totally different results. So he's in power through a fraudulent system, and he wants to govern through that system. He knows he's a man who has benefited from that kind of operations. Because he hung around Moi. He benefited from the excesses of Moi. He's perfected the art. And here he is now, bringing the country down so that he can benefit himself. And what I'm trying to say is that we need to tell people that we have a constitution that says that within the 5th year, we're going to have elections. But those elections must be dealt with. And I want to do some simple civic education. When you look at the preamble to our constitution, it says, we the people give ourselves this constitution. If you go to Article 1, it says, we the people are sovereign. Then it says, we the people can either exercise power directly or indirectly through elected representatives. Then we the people delegate power to the executive at both the national and county level, the legislature at the national and county level, and the judiciary. You see. But who are the people? We need people to understand that. And when they say we give ourselves this constitution, how did the Kenyans give themselves that constitution? What was the method? A referendum. Who participated in the referendum?
It's the people.
Registered voters, not just any citizen. So we need to get Kenyans to understand that not every Kenyan is considered the people.
Right.
The people are only those ones with a voter's card. That's why when you go to the Bill of Rights, it talks about every person. It doesn't say the people have rights. They say every person has got this right, every person has that right. How do you amend the Constitution? Either through Parliament. How is Parliament constituted? Through a vote. Either you do through popular initiative. How do you raise the million? It's 1 million voters. Then it goes to a referendum. You see. So the people are people with voters' cards. It's not just any Kenyan. So Kenyans must understand that for you to count in this country, you must be a voter. Otherwise, you are a passenger. You are not a decision maker in this country. And so, once we get this kind of civic education down, we even get the people to understand that if you look at the architecture in Article 53B, it says every child is entitled to free and compulsory basic education. A child is defined as somebody under 18. You get a whole ministry doing a fee structure, school fees guidelines, when the Constitution itself has
it's very clear. I have a problem though, okay, as you continue. I fear you, I think you're not getting my question.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, which is, looking at understanding how we correct our system. Today, we are looking at people who are mourning, people who are angry at what happened yesterday, people who are on edge. As they were coming out yesterday, they were on edge. As days go by, they could decide, people could just decide, okay, because of what has happened, let's come back onto the street, right? And even as we do the civic education and we engage as we register as voters, how do we channel the anger that we have now so that it can be managed into waiting for the 2027, if that's the route? How do we channel that anger into making sure that we manage it and we understand what is at stake? That's the question I'm asking. I'm just going back into what you said, that, uprising versus revolution. That was your opening issue here.
And you saw an uprising in Tunisia. What did it do? An uprising in Egypt. What did it do? You see?
Yeah.
They all brought in regimes that were worse than the previous ones. You saw the uprising in Libya. What did it do? You see? And an anchor country like Kenya, which is just on the brink of breakout, an uprising would give the neo-colonial powers an opportunity to totally disrupt us. And they install funny things. Look at Sudan. What the uprising has done. It has thrown them into a serious civil war. That's why we are saying we must harness this anger and direct it to a constitutional change of power. And to do that is to make people see and understand that the solutions are in the Constitution. And to get the solutions are in the Constitution, we need to do political education. They need to do political education on a very, very serious note to get people to see that, yes, they are messing, but the mess is time-bound. If we can just be patient enough, we shall be able to think through and come up with a blueprint for implementing the Constitution. And we move away from trying to see anybody as a messiah. We should get the consciousness of the nation to a point whereby they will not brook any nonsense. And it can happen because in 2018, before 2018, I think the last time it happened it was 2018, whereby you used to have people hoarding goods. You could find at budget time, before the budget was read, people would hoard goods, shelves would go empty. Then when the budget is read, they come back with the new prices. Even some petrol stations would say they have no fuel, waiting for the new stuff to come. Now, when we did that, When we did that, I went to court in 2018 and challenged that thing, and I said that the finance bill must be debated. And I won the case. Now, the finance bill began being debated. And you saw incrementally until we got to 2024. I've been fighting the finance bill alone. Every year I've challenged it in court. Every year I've challenged it in court. Even in 2023, I challenged it, succeeded in the High Court, in the Court of Appeal. I was thrown out in the Supreme Court. But now look at 2024, what happened. With the fact that now the finance bill is being debated as required by the Constitution, that any law made by Parliament must be subject to public participation, must be introduced and debated in the houses before it must be ascended into law by the president before it's enforced. That changeover has opened people to understand where we are politically. So we need more work on that. And on my part, there is, I've put up a group of young people who have come up, have developed a syllabus and a training manual on the Constitution, on the anchor clauses of the Constitution that need to be implemented. And they have set up, they're called the Identity Yetu. And you remember when the Gen Z went out last time, they said they have no identity, basically. Now they're coming out to say Identity Yetu, our identity is this. And their identity is now good governance, rule of law, and have unbundled the key areas with particular focus on the Bill of Rights, on integrity and leadership, where they are also trying to do a very important job of distinguishing between qualification for you to be elected and suitability for election. Article 73 requires suitability, not qualification. But you find people have just said, I'm qualified because I've appealed, I've qualified. Then we have got also chapter 7 on elections. We have got chapter 8 on devolution. And chapter 11 on devolution and chapter 12 on public finance. We are focusing on those anchor provisions as a way of getting Kenyans to say that the destiny they require is within the Constitution. And ignorance is what keeping people away from it. And so if we can just work on that and get the nation to be empowered, we'll be able to achieve a revolution. Right from the ground, going up. Even what should an MCA be doing? This, you have got these things called, they call them supplementary budgets. Supplementary budgets are supposed to address emergencies. But you see today, they pass a budget which is subjected to public participation, where they give people a document they will accept. Then as soon as they go to the House, they supplement it. So they are defeating the purpose of public participation because the supplementary does not go to public participation.
What are some reflections you have?
They amend some other laws, like
the
tax amendment laws.
Some reflections on what, because are you also asking for in the now? Like parallel, there's the bigger conversations of understanding the Constitution. Are you also speaking to, like, let's create safe zones for expression? Let's center goodwill. Sometimes I'm also very pragmatic. You know, I'm like, what do we do? Where can we channel now?
I'm at the now. I mean,
yeah, the now so
what happens? Where does it begin? And what sort of leaders need to emerge so that the people can then identify that this is a leader who's leading me in the right direction and the right direction of, you know, how I shall benefit from all these agitation that I'm doing. And this is not a leader who's leading me in the wrong direction where they shall benefit from my agitation. Right? How do we start identifying that? How do we identify the path? The path that does not take us into this uprising Sudan, Tunisia situation, but a path that takes us into a revolution, like you call it, where we are saying we are seeking good governance, we shall get good governance.
Measured, strong voices.
Measured, strong voices.
Yeah, without also centering them as to what he's saying, Messiah. Because sometimes it's somebody who's got quiet strength, but they're saying, listen, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to focus on. I'm trying to think of examples. The only one I can think of doesn't really play a part here because it was a Mandela Chris Hani example. Because in '93, when Chris Hani was assassinated, South Africa was going to be on the brink of civil war. They were like, what did you just do? And I remember there's this very incredible footage where they're passing with his casket and there's Afrikaners with guns. And it was...
This close.
It was right on the edge.
It was right on the edge, and at that time, from many reports, what Mandela did was diffuse. Because first of all, that was his friend, so he was already mad. Came on air, he's just like, can we not?
Right.
Kind of said, like, you know what, this is what he would want. And a lot of people, whether it's, people have opinions, but a lot of people credit that for diffusing what could have been a civil war. But I don't know whether that's the same.
A spark. I see it, by the way.
Yeah,
You see,
yeah.
we've got leaders in various spheres. We've got like the clergy. The Kenya Catholic Council of Catholic Bishops, for example, speaks and it's listened to. This has the largest number of followers in this country, Catholics. Okay? You've got the NCCK with the Protestant churches. We've got all of them coming together as the Interreligious Council. And these are the voices that should be the voices of reason. If those came out and said, all right, so we want to, this is it. This is how we de-escalate this. This is the demands that we are making up publicly and saying, you, President, this is what the people are saying. Okay? Stop your hard line and listen. This is what the people are saying. On Wednesday, be here. You, youth, this is what you're saying. This is how we should, and this is how we get towards addressing this particular conversation. I think it needs that at this moment.
It needs
because
that.
short of that is another
Escalation
of this, and it goes beyond what we've seen.
And also I've said that leaders, in whatever spaces they occupy, need to come out and channel and harness this energy that the youth are having into something that a force for progress and not destruction. And I agree with you that we are just on the precipice. And we need to step back from the precipice. And if people were to understand the solution to the problem, that we already have the solution in our hands, called the Constitution of Kenya, and is ignorant of the Constitution of Kenya, that is allowing the people who have delegated power to behave the way they do, be they judges, be they MPs or MCS, be they the president or the executive and the civil service that they lead. Once people understand those boundaries, and also the professional bodies are the elephant in the room. All this mismanagement of the economy, this misrule that we have, is abetted and aided by professionals. Politicians don't sign anywhere, except for the president when he's signing for law, the law, or the government signing a law into your knee. Politicians don't sign anywhere. The civil servants who come from professional bodies are the ones who have got the signatures. If the professional bodies also were to rein in their followers, like if somebody does a bad road, a badly built road is done and an engineer has certified it, and they strike him off the roll of engineers. All those things will generate...
or ISPAC.
Yes, or ISPAC, whatever. So people will begin, or even the LSK. Somebody has signed a skewed contract. Be it the Attorney General, kick him out. I saw the other day, the Uganda Law Association, I think, they registered a judge. So we don't know they can continue practicing without being a member of the society, you see. Because the judge was very close to power and he was exercising impunity. So they took action on him. If the Law Society of Kenya had registered some of our judges who keep on sustaining the rogue regime, people will shape up. So the leadership has to come out. It's now a time for leadership and for statesmanship, and not for occupiers of political offices to lead the charge. Even so, the commemoration that was held the other day was at the All Saints Cathedral. It was only safe space those people could meet. I can tell you if those people tried to meet in a hotel, they would have been maybe tear gassed. Even yesterday, they were hauled up in Java across the road from here. That's why the parents of the deceased ended up, and the relatives were hauled up there because they were being tear gassed. You see? So I think if that were to happen, and me, the silver lining I say is that, like even yesterday when there were some of them were hitting us with tear gas, with live bullets, rubber bullets, quite a number of the policemen in those vehicles which were driving across were doing this, were giving us a thumbs up. And if you look at those videos very well, especially when I was sitting down here, that video that came across, the driver, one of the trucks, was just like this. So there's that belief. We meet policemen every day. They are that poor, most of them. They are suffering. And the corruption does not spare them. Right now, I've got a motion in the Senate where I'm trying to pursue compensation for about 400 policemen who are injured or died in the course of duty. Their money was paid, but it never reached them. It remained in between there. Right now, you see a situation like what happened to the young man Ojuang, who was killed. We have not seen the post he's alleged to have made. And that's why some of us are saying if the post is that he alleged this man, Lagat, to be corrupt, let us do a lifestyle audit on Lagat. Let him explain if he thinks it's clean. Let him tell us how much he owns and how he made it. As simple as that. Not to go and do what they're doing. You see the game they played on us the other day? That Talam's phone, which was the custody of IPOA, was doing what? Was transmitting. IPOA, who in IPOA would have the custody of that phone, is the police officers who work for IPOA.
Right.
So they served one of their own by mischievously doing that so that they can take the phone away from IPOA and give it back to the CID. And then the cover-up will continue from there. So they think people are just blocks in this country.
Which is our town.
You see.
What we call it.
So
Yeah.
the regime, it's not a walk in the park, but we have a solution. We have a destination. We have to keep on pointing people to the Constitution, that this is where we have to go, that is where our destiny is, and this is our national anthem.
Right.
And we must work towards that without negotiating.
You know, I always wonder, we say we're doing this, fixing the nation one conversation at a time, and we say here consistently, in your space, do whatever you can, right? And we push, we make progress. There's a new layer. I had not thought about professional bodies specifically. Also now, playing their part, to be honest. Your LSK, your ISPACs, your KMPDC, sorry, all of them, right? And I've now thought about it. It's like that would be a great way to also hold them accountable, because then we can't appoint you whatever when you are deregistered from your professional body. You know, we can't appoint you to.
You see, I had a very good experience the other day from the Central Bank of Kenya. When I filed my case demanding that Uhuru and this cronies refund the public 4.7 trillion, which I've codified that was stolen from the coffers under his watch. And by 30th November last year, 2.3 trillion had been stolen by William Groot and his cohort. When the case went, the AG came in and filed an application to have it dismissed, that the Auditor General needs to be given time now to look at the budget and whatever. But who, out of the blue, the central bank said, no, this is a very important case. You cannot dismiss it. If anything, it requires a bench of more than one judge to look at it. That's a professional coming in to say, let us look at these issues. But look at the people who are politically wired, what they are trying to do.
We just have to go on a short break. But when we come back, we'll now speak to the senator of Busia from. I was about to say both.
All senators belong to the republic.
Yes.
But they come from somewhere.
Yes.
All MPs or MCAs come from somewhere and represent. Then they belong to the county. Yeah. That's why I can go to Moyale and demand accountability. But Otuoma, my governor, cannot even go to Siaya to ask anything.
The senator
is a village boy
from Busia. We'll also talk about this move by the Communications Authority, the legality of it. Of course, there's nothing much to discuss there, but we want to get your views. Of course, Okiya Omtatah is in studio with us, and we'll be continuing the discussion with him. Hashtag is morning fix. Wow. I went straight back to default settings. The hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We are live on YouTube, of course, on Nation FM, and across all social media platforms. We'll be opening up our phone lines as well. If you have questions for the senator, 0719-038-858. 0719-038-858. Do call in, ask your questions, and we'll be more than happy to share them.
Something positive is happening tonight, by the way. Remember the other day we talked about Faith Kipyegon beating the 4-minute mark.
4-minute mile.
Yeah, the 4-minute mile. Elias Makori is in Paris, and he's written an entire story on the back page of the Daily Nation today, where Faith Kipyegon, if there's anything that can unite the nation after yesterday's socio-political tension, then it's the power of sport. And if there's anyone who can help sew together the tattered national fabric, it's Faith Chepngetich Kipyegon. Tonight in Paris, she wants to run under 4 minutes in a mile. That is 1,500 meters in under 4 minutes. She set the distance world record mark at 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Nearly 2 years ago, during a Diamond League meet in Monaco, that's at 1,500 meters. But today she's doing 1,600 meters in under what? 4 minutes.
Yeah, we discussed it in our training with her.
I love
We exchanged notes. I was like, this is how you can do it.
Okay.
Based on the fact that, in my previous life, nilikuwa Olympian. But it's
You are
okay.
an Olympian,
Please,
yes.
let's return to the matter at
Ukafanya
hand.
4 minutes.
Yeah. And let's
Hata
root for her, by the way,
sikujaribu.
the way we rooted for
But
Kipchoge.
I know, yes, that's
there's a
what
dark
it is.
side.
Uh-huh.
How much has the government invested in her? You'll find it's basically an individual effort.
Yeah.
Yep, it is all individual effort.
Yet, they look at the glory she's given the country. These are the gold mines that we are ignoring.
Yep.
Agreed.
Sports and culture in this country has been ignored. You'll find that there's no system for harvesting these people from the grassroots.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody gets into the police force and gets some arrangement or things like those. So
Our sports reporter here called James Wakabi puts it very nicely. He says, any success in sporting in Kenya is a happy accident.
yes,
It's a happy
you see.
accident.
So
There's nothing systemic. Yeah.
this is telling us that this country has greatness.
Yeah.
Let us focus on this greatness. Let us
Yeah.
nurture this talent. Let us invest in them.
Yeah.
Let us give them the study they need, the facilities they need. And I'm telling you, they'll bring in a lot of money. They'll give us a very good name globally, and they have done.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but-
that's the only
yeah,
thing. But
but-
I'm fully behind her.
Yep.
I pray for her that she has a good day and she achieves her dream.
Yeah, jokes
wish her
aside, we
all
wish her
the
the best. I think it says the starts at 9 p.m. Kenya time. Faith's actual run starts at 9 p.m. Kenya time.
So she'll be glued
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
TV.
To the TV.
And we really
Yes.
wish her the best.
And
She's amazing.
Yes.
And there's nothing as
9:15
beautiful
to
as seeing those Kenyans crossing the finish line.
Yes.
Oh, it feels so good.
I know.
It feels
The
so
pride
good.
just swells.
Yeah, even the sorrows you have had, you just
For a
get,
moment.
just get exercise like demons have been taken out of you.
Yeah. Exorcisms are maybe, I don't know, something we should look into for some of our political class, to be honest. Because there's no other explanation. This is spiritual warfare at this
Like
point.
one time I told somebody, I don't believe there are any demons left in hell. They're all in Kenya. They're all in Kenya. Plus Satan, the Lucifer himself is here.
This is spiritual warfare,
It
guys.
really
we need,
is. If
We
people-
need everything.
If people, we need all hands on
All
deck.
hands on deck.
If people who can exercise, we're like, mobilize
Yeah,
them for journey.
Come
Be
together.
careful though.
Yes.
That even the demons' hands will be on deck. So you've got to first
That's
vet.
deep.
Then we'll see them and deal with
You
them.
have, you have to vet and know.
I keep feeling like this is a Pharaoh and Moses moment, but like Moses is the people and the constitution, and Pharaoh is Pharaoh. Pharaoh is who we know.
And I like looking at it
Yeah.
as a Nehemiah moment. It's not an exodus from Egypt
Yes.
to Jericho, Jerusalem, no. It's a return to Jerusalem. From Babylon. We are not in
80
Egypt right
years
now. We are
in
in Babylon.
captivity.
Yes, we are
Yeah.
in Babylon now. And we need a Nehemiah to bring us back. That's why you don't need an uprising. We need a revolution.
Yeah.
Something scientific, something measured, something calculated. So that now the journey back to the promised land is from Babylon, not from Egypt. From Egypt came warriors. And we had our warriors. The Mau Maus and all those people did their part. Then we got into Jerusalem with independence. Then we messed. Now we are in captivity by Babylon. And we have a constitution now. We need our temple is the constitution.
Yeah.
So we need a Nehemiah to come and rebuild the temple, to come and implement the constitution. Not a Joshua, like Baba says. We need a Nehemiah.
Take us
We
back.
are in Babylon.
Wisdom itakumaliza Okiya.
You need to process.
I need to process. I need a
Let's
moment.
also welcome you to
love
participate
it.
in this conversation. We are reflecting at yesterday and looking at the way forward. What next? What next for Kenya? What next after what we've done so far? June 25th, yesterday we were marking a year since that day last year when Parliament was breached. And many people have said, there are those that have said, when citizens took back their sovereignty, when citizens demonstrated that they are the ones who are sovereign, that they are the ones who've delegated power into members of Parliament, and they can at any moment take it back.
Yeah.
That was the demonstration, and so on and so forth. Yesterday was marking a year since. What has the impact been, and what do we do with this moment going forward?
Right.
Please call us in. Mariam, what are our numbers, please?
For WhatsApp,
For calling.
Oh, ya kupiga. 0719-038-858. It's going to be appearing at the bottom of your screen shortly. 0719-038-858. Please do call us. Your comment, your question, and we'll get into it. Just as we were going into the break, I wanted to ask the Senator, Imamboya, the Communications Authority gag order, you can call it what you want, but it was a gag order, to have live broadcasts of the Mandamano seized by all TV stations, and then the subsequent switching off of NTV, K24, and I'm missing one station, KTN, yes. A court order has now been issued. The LSK went to court, and a court order has been issued calling it an illegality, however, still off air.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank Faith Odhiambo, who has got always a presence of mind to move in time. I think that one for me, I was very happy that she did that. And nothing for me demonstrates better the tension between a repressive state and freedom than what happened yesterday. Because in my world, I believe that a free person walks on two legs. Freedom of the media, freedom of expression codified by the media, and the right to a fair trial codified by an independent judiciary. And I'll tell you that dictatorship cannot coexist with the two. You have an independent judiciary, you have got a free media. They can never be dictatorship. Check your record of history. The first thing to be destroyed is the media, the two legs, the media and the judiciary. And you'll always find that where there's an independent judiciary, there's always an independent media. And where there is, but the other reverse, where there's no independent media, you cannot have an independent judiciary. Because the judiciary is part of the governance. So it's by the media being able to highlight issues and to spotlight what is going on, that the judiciary gets encouraged to be free and independent. So attacking the media is trying to decapitate the rights of Kenyans. And that's the most heinous attack on the Kenyans. It is not as simple as people have tried to put it. For me, that is the anchor. It demonstrates that conflict, that this government does not believe in the rights of Kenyans. It would rather do their things in darkness. They don't want to be understood, they don't want to be audited, they don't want to be spotlighted, they just want to do their thing. And this is the second time it's happening.
Yeah.
If you remember on January 30th, 2018, the same thing happened. They banned the TVs. I went to court, not the media houses, I was able to get orders, but they were defied for a long time. And that is what I went to. They banned the media on 30th. I went to court on 30th of January. I went to court on 1st of February, and got the orders I got. The orders were defied for a long time. The matter is still live in court in terms of holding Mr. Matiang'i. I've sued Matiang'i, and others are holding him accountable for that violation of the rights of Kenyans. So that particular incident is now being again reinforced here. There were already orders that were given earlier that you do not do that. Here you are again, they've done it. The LSK has gone to court. They've gotten orders that don't do that. But the orders are being defied. That's why I told you that these people have discarded the Constitution. They are ruling by the sword. They think they've got goons and soldiers who will keep them in power. No longer the people. The people have moved. And as you said, Look at when Baba moved to join them. The people did not follow Baba. The people stayed out. And now Baba is like in a territory he doesn't understand. You saw the mandamano that came out. No individual Kenyan in history has called that kind of mandamano. And nobody organized that mandamano. It's the people themselves who have organized the mandamano, courtesy of the social media now and other tools of engagement and the media, which has also highlighted these things. So by cutting down the media, slowing down the internet and doing all the things they did, they want Kenyans to live in captivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a very sad thing, and we must fight back.
Yeah.
Without a free press, we lose everything. Even the judiciary, a free judiciary depends on a free press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you pursue any formal action as senator?
Yes, I need to review. We'll try to raise, when we go back, we're on recess. When you go back, I want to move a motion or a statement, a request for a statement, to get the grounds why that was done and why the orders were defied. Because they might come up with the usual thing that there was state security, what have you. But state security is our welfare, and our welfare is based on us being informed. Ignorant people have got no security. Yeah.
I'm looking at quite a number of comments coming on YouTube. Afrocentric says, Omtatah might have our interests at heart, but Kenya is still largely divided along tribal lines. He needs massive campaign resources and has to dine with the devil to get that seat. This is something we've talked with you about on this platform as well. Yeah. This idea that you have to retreat to your tribal cocoons. He says Kisi's will front Matiang'i, Kambas will front Kalonzo, Mount Kenya will have some DCP front runner, and cunning Ruto will pass in between them. Without unity in the opposition, Ruto is going nowhere.
Well, first of all, I think that person has not read the Constitution. The same ignorance I'm telling you is killing us. The Constitution requires the victor to garner 50% plus one vote. So if you get so many actors coming in, you are assured that there will be no winner in the first round. Okay? Now, the second round will automatically leave you with 2 candidates. Yeah. Yeah, it will unite you. So the idea that watu wauze sura badala ya kuuza sera is something I'm averse to. I don't, and that's what I'm saying, we don't look for a messiah. Let the Kalonzo, the Omtatahs, the Matiang'is, the whatever, the Maragas, the Wamunyoros, whatever, anybody who says that this Kenya can be better, irrespective of their history, come up with a blueprint and say that this is what we need to see done, and let anybody of them drive it. We cannot begin with a driver without a vehicle. We did that. You even remember when Kibaki came in with the Kibaki Tosha. After Kibaki came in, and one of the biggest problems that Kibaki did not succeed in governance, although he improved a bit from Moi, but he did not transform the country, is because there was no agenda for transforming the country. Right. It was just that Kibaki Tosha, and after that you saw meetings come, even at KICC, that we will hold a meeting at the Kenya we want, the Nairobi we want. That should be discussed before power is acquired, and then say, okay, this is the agenda, who is the best suited person to drive this vehicle. But right now when you begin customizing a vehicle to a driver, talking of the canvas, talking of whatever, on the streets yesterday, there was no tribal formation. And the new generation has also come. And there's a procedure in the Constitution. With this new generation, those mobilizing tribally are headed nowhere. What we just need to ensure is these young people understand that to be in the people, they must have voters' cards, and let them offer themselves also as candidates, not just voters. Yes. And the battleground should be the ward. The decision of who is president must be made in each ward. And if we do that, the old order, the canons of the old will fall silent. And the new canons will grow. Right. And the new canon will be the Constitution of Kenya, the rule of law. Yeah. There's no other way. I cannot come here and say that Omtatah will be a messiah that give me this. Let us implement this Constitution. Even Ruto today can save this country. He can turn around and do what the law requires. And there will be no need for me to run for president. If he just does what the law requires, we'll support him. But for as long as he does what the law does not require. If you remember my speech with him in Busia, I told him, Mr. You are my friend. There's been a day you gave me 30,000 shillings. But if you preach the Constitution, you cross the red line. and you have to be destroyed. Yeah. And that's what he has done repeatedly, many times.
There's something here about us being now proactive with our defense of, for example, media streams come 2027. Peter is asking, Mr. Omtatah, can we petition for the protection of media streams come 2027 during the vote counting process as early as now? Because the events of yesterday are raising serious concerns come 2027. I think that's very fair. How do we protect our freedoms to information via media through the internet as well?
You see, right now in this country, if it's let us begin with the internet, which is personalized. I would urge people to shift to Starlight. Is it called Starlight?
Starlink.
Starlink. Yeah. Shift to Starlink and avoid these terrestrial connections, especially Safaricom, which has become an agent and an enabler of some of the destructive things we are saying. They deny with one side, but when you look at the evidence, it looks different. I would urge people to go onto those kind of networks where the government cannot block them.
Right.
Remember, somebody was saying Mobutu Sese Seko had created a situation whereby he did not build roads. So there was no way of marching to Kinshasa from the countryside. But when the satellite phone came, people were able to coordinate and say, we are going to Kinshasa. So
when you consider how big people will go, sorry.
Yeah. So let us now get to this place whereby people do that. Secondly, the media channels should also try very much to be available on the net. And also try to defy, because see what they have done is that even the partnerships you have tried to protect in terms of advertising, see what they have done, like for the print media. They've given to an nondescript paper. They are no longer going by circulation records to say that when the law says a paper of national circulation, we should go and say how many people are reading the Standard. They say 2 papers. We must first of all rank the papers, 1, 2, 3. How many people are reading the Standard? How many people are reading the Star? How many people are reading the Nation? Then the 1, 2 on that verified list of circulation should be the one
that gets
because it's the paper with the widest circulation, national circulation, should be carrying government adverts. Now, if you can't track them in papers which are challenged, or let every paper then go back to the situation where we had, let them quote for adverts, let them see how they get adverts, but to put them in one house and say that we shall not advertise through this channel, you see that's another control on the media that you have not seen, because they're trying to use, in a country like Kenya, you'll find that the biggest business is government. You need advertising to sustain media. The capacity of you to advertise so that you can follow what we need. Let the media come in and set up networks. If they go and block the live stream, let us have a nation media on Thuraya. Then we pick it with our phones on Thuraya. I'm on Elon Musk's system. You are on Thuraya. I pick that information and I get. But ultimately, the only counting of votes has to happen in the polling station, and the only tallying has to happen at the constituency. The remaining is to do mathematics and declare. And in fact, the Constitution is very clear. It uses the word announce and declare deliberately. When you can declare that.
You announce the result and you declare the winner.
You declare the winner, yes. That's the architecture. Then you don't again come to Bomas to begin computing that how did the polling stations return their results, and then you begin again, then you discard whatever and what have you. It will end there. We vote today. Tomorrow we know who has been elected president. And we wait for the declaration, the formal conferment of the victory.
Okay. I want to move to public debt. I don't know if it's too soon, but I don't want to forget. Also, the views expressed are the senators, not ours. When I had certain organizations been mentioned, I think it's important to say the senators' views and not those of fixing the nation. I think when you were last here, a few months ago, you had a court case around public debt.
It is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. Just wanted to get an update. And just tell us how that also ties into wider democratic erosion and even sort of like police violence, if there's any interlinkage. But an update for now on that case.
Of course, one is that right now, the government of Kenya is no longer providing goods and services. If it's providing any service, it's repression through the police, if that can be a service. But generally, all the tax money is going out to pay odious debt. And I think my calculation last time was 82 shillings out of 100 shillings collected in tax is going to redeem this, is going to pay these debts. So the government is left with 18 shillings. So basically, the government has become a tax collector. That's what the IMF wants it to be. That's what the World Bank wants it to be. But it does not provide any goods. And you can look at the budget. In fact, one thing I believe in terms of myself is that governments have only one policy document called the budget. If it's not in the budget, it's nowhere. So if you look at the budget right now, they have removed, they have watered down allocations for education, allocations for health. They have beefed up security where they're surviving. So social services are not being provided. So essentially, we have got a government that believes that it must tax people without giving anything back. And so the odious debt now becomes important in the sense that a big chunk of those taxes goes to pay the debt. Last year, I think they paid 1.7 trillion shillings servicing debt. Of that, only 700 went to the principal debt. The 1 million went to the 1 trillion. 700 billion went to servicing the debt. 1 trillion was interest. It's not sustainable. You find a situation whereby parliamentarians got it totally wrong. That is the National Assembly, got it totally wrong and came up with some nonsense called a debt ceiling. In Kenya, Article 220 of the Constitution is very clear that the budget must address the question of debt. You are going to borrow, what's the justification? And where is the repayment coming? When you go to debt ceiling, which is anchored on some fictitious economic figure called GDP, we pay debts from our taxes. We don't pay debt from GDP. GDP can be very rosy, but in a country like Kenya, whereby about 90% of the wealth is in the hands of 10% or less. When you tax those 90% people at about 30%, what you get is very small. Debts are paid from taxes, and there should be a correlation between debt and the capacity to raise taxes. Now, you saw the other day with the Eurobond, I was saying that they are borrowing debt to pay another debt. It's totally unconstitutional. Because it is said that any debt is the first charge. And one of the things we have interrogated and found is that even that money was stolen because that debt of the Eurobond had already been paid from the consolidated fund as a standing charge. And here we are again being told we are borrowing more Eurobonds to pay that debt. And they tell you we use the money to pay the debt that side. They use local money that have already paid the debt, they borrow that money, they bank it abroad. And I've one of them who boasted to me one time and said, Omtatah, you are going to die poor. Me, I have secured my lineage. Up to my 4th generation, can afford not to work. And they will be happy. I told him, I'm planning to produce idiots. Because
who can't work?
Work is the most rewarding thing in life. You see?
It's a fair question. Hold on. Let's go back to that Eurobond. It was paid, but then we borrowed to pay.
We borrowed to pay that day under route.
We borrowed to pay, that I know, but I didn't know we had paid.
We had paid to go to the consolidated fund. See the statement of net revenue, actual revenue and net expenditure. It comes out 30th of every month by the Treasury. And there's somebody in the Treasury doing a very good job. He's keeping the record. Just that we don't know how to look or we don't look. Yeah, she's there.
Okay.
So we're being fooled left, right, and center. And that's why we're saying that the odious debt must be looked into. Right now, the case, because of the intervention of the central bank, which quashed the AG's attempt to have it dismissed, has been sent to the Chief Justice. And we are trying to ask the Lady Chief Justice to give us a super bench of at least 5 or 7 judges so that we can have a very, very good determination of the issues. Because among the issues I'm raising is who should pay this debt.
If it didn't benefit the people, why should
it didn't benefit the
pay?
people? It was borrowed with outside the law. It never even came here. They bring the debt here. They don't bring the money here. Who should pay? Another thing that is happening when we are being looted is that now, if you look at even our debts that are going through Parliament, they are all A in A. About 90% is A in A. And A in A is appropriation in aid. Appropriation in aid is like what is happening now with the Mombasa Expressway. They say Americans are coming to build it. It's a loan from the US. They don't give us the money to get the most affordable whatever. They say, show us the space where you want to build the road. Then they bring their people here. They build the road at their own cost. The money stays in their economies. It develops their economies. But then now they bring the debt here. We don't get the money. So even A and A's need to be looked at critically to ensure that anybody giving us money, it is scratch my back, I scratch your back. Not that because I've been so exposed and I'm listening to IMF, I'm allowing all these A and A's by the Western world to come and recolonize us economically. So that's what I'm doing. But the odious debt case is a very, very sad state of affairs in this country.
Have you been able to talk to your fellow senators, fellow legislators, let me just call them that, both at the Senate and the National Assembly, to get a number of them to see your point? So that then you conduct the business of oversight. As you're dealing with the current debt, you know, we're still borrowing. Yeah. We have a new budget that has, is it an 800 billion shilling deficit?
Yeah.
Or thereabout? We're going to borrow 1 trillion shillings in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Are you talking to your fellow legislators so that you can oversight this better?
I think the solution to that lies outside Parliament. Parliament is a total toothless bulldog. You saw the other time, we came together, a number of us, when the Adani thing happened, when Senator Nyonga moved the motion, Lademo Lekina joined in, Sifuna joined in, Chiredike joined in, Onyonga himself was there, and I joined in, 5 of us. We were able to hammer, and defeat the attempt that was done. They wanted to have a clearing house like they did with the fertilizer. So we were able to parachute into that committee. Some of us were not even members, and give it the numbers to overcome what was happening. Now, look at what has happened the other day. Who comes up to own Adani?
Baba.
It's Baba who's saying that this Adani thing was my baby. It was a good thing. Should not have gone. And you'll realize that power in Parliament, because the power of the past is outside Parliament, Parliament has got no power. So if you become very vocal, either your party will whip you like right now, ODM and Soyuz were joining the so-called broad-based, they will whip you in a manner that you have to toe the party line. Some of us are very lucky that we are able to, personally, because I cannot be whipped, I'm the only independent voice there. So most of the people there may even see, some even come to you and say, Mr. We agree with this, and whatever, but you see now, we are emasculated. Yeah. So until we take the power of the past from the president back into Parliament, the voice of the people in Kenya is not going to be heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do your fellow parliamentarians see this?
I think they do. The other time, one of them came to me and said he agrees with what I was doing because what he had seen happen, a transaction he saw happen, where 200 million shillings were just moved from Treasury to State House in a matter of minutes, and he didn't believe it because he was there. So he came to me and said, I now think I agree with you. We have to do something about this. So I think that if the people get to understand, the MPs will respond. Let us not expect any leadership from elected leaders. The leadership has to come up from the ground and let the people drive. You see, like the impeachment of Gachagua, initially, it had not become very, very serious in terms of some communities. But when the people in Central said we are dying with Gachagua, and the other areas were largely dominated by the Kikuyu community, their politicians fell in line. Even those who had gone to say they were going to impeach Gachagua.
Yeah.
You see. And by the way, I'm the only one who didn't come from the community who voted against impeaching Gachagua. And I voted no on all the 11 counts because I did not believe that we had laid the framework for impeaching a vice president, and we can't use the impeachment or the framework for impeaching a president who enjoys immunity from prosecution and whatever to impeach a vice president.
Oh, so it is not that you don't think any of the 11 charges, I don't know what to call them.
No, you see, the
merits?
president, I felt that all those things were issues for the OCS, not the Senate.
Okay.
If they say he forged a will of his brother, the OCS should deal with
Go
that.
to the police.
He doesn't enjoy immunity, but if it was the president, then it would become an issue because the president cannot be prosecuted. He cannot be taken before law enforcement. All the 11 charges for me were things to be taken
To the OCS. Okay.
or the ethics and anti-corruption, not be brought for political trial.
Oh, so it was a matter of law, not principle.
Yeah, the other thing, Article 50 of the Constitution, Clause 1, says everybody must appear before, if you are being tried, you must appear before an independent tribunal. Now, that particular power was taken away by 145 when they said the president can be tried by peers. So how are we going to secure the rights of the deputy president and ensure that he's appearing before an independent tribunal? You see? When the House is politically just being charged, money is changing hands and just confusion. So for me, I decided to vote my conscience and said, I will not condemn an innocent man. Because he's innocent because it's not the threshold for trying him is not there. If we had done a law for trying the vice president, and then the accusation from the National Assembly met the threshold, I would have been persuaded to get him out. But when it is just a lynch mob, because people have disagreed on shares somewhere, it's a lynch mob, and there's evidence that really there were shares. But so you see, that's how weak Parliament is. So we need to get the power of the purse away from the president, back to Parliament, as required by Article 225, Clause 1. Then this country will sober up because there will be no money to throw around.
No, actually, about even the shares, the two gentlemen disagreed on figures.
Yes.
The president says Gachagua asked for 10 billion. Gachagua says the president offered 2 billion.
You see. Now,
And we all get involved.
so how do we get involved in impeaching that guy and this guy?
Omtatah, how long do you see before a critical mass of Kenyans think the way you're thinking?
I think they are. They may not be having the clarity of mind that I have, but people have realized that something is wrong. The majority have already realized something is wrong. The majority are saying we cannot continue under a governance system that we have today, and something has to change. Now, to just give it clarity as this is the ABCD of what needs to be done is where the challenge is.
Okay.
But the consciousness has come.
Consciousness is there.
Yeah, but the solution, the fact, people, there's such ignorance of the Constitution that's mind-boggling. People don't know what the Constitution is telling them.
Yeah. True.
It's their way, the way they should be governed.
Sorry, I was still hung up on the 11 charges that Gachagua was impeached on. Things like gross violation of the constitutional provisions on unity and equality. Those are OCS matters.
But hold on to the thought. We have Andrew.
Oh, okay.
We've lost him. He's gone. Okay.
All right, yes. So I was just thinking, or undermining the president and the cabinet. OCS.
What does that mean?
Undermining judicial independence.
What does that mean?
What is undermining the president?
So they've given examples of the articles that were violated. Violating for Article 160, by attacking and threatening High Court Judge Esther Maina after ruling against him. That's undermining judicial independence.
No, it is not. That's a prosecutable issue.
Okay. Gross violation of constitutional provisions, promoting...
Because there's something called contempt of court. Where was he not taken in for contempt of court? If he had abused the authority of a judge. Yeah.
Okay.
Judges are protected.
Insubordination, openly defied and sabotaged the president and the cabinet, including interfering in sectors like tea and agriculture, whatever, for political gain.
Where was the evidence?
So it was vague. Is it just the fact that it was...
I do. It was obviously very politically charged. I do wonder, though, if those are things that an OCS could deal with.
No, those were not charges.
It was politically motivated, clearly.
Yeah,
everything about it.
Political attacks.
A witch hunt.
Every day, politicians challenge each other. That's not undermining. Yeah.
It's very subjective.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Personal. I'm just wondering, as we still go back to the matter of young people, there's such a courageous population. What can people like you do to protect young voices from retaliation, as we're seeing, and help them channel that into like political participation and leadership? What role do you think?
We have to create room for that participation. So far, there's no room for that participation. You have to create room for that participation. You have to create a platform. And that's why I told you personally, at my personal level, I've set up this thing called Identietu. And we have got an agenda. Initially, we wanted to fight against the 300 shillings that was being charged for an ID. So we decided to create a platform. We wanted to crowd fund for 1 million people to get new IDs. So we went to the registrar, the secretary, and we discussed it, and we told them, give us an account. We want to fundraise at least 400 million shillings so that people come, and the first people to arrive, you give them IDs, and we pay money from that fund, and then we shall audit. And then we also discussed about mobile registration of IDs. So what happened is that 2 days after we had gone to that place, the president announced that he had called off the 300 shillings, whatever. And Murkomen went and launched a mobile facility. And when you looked at that website, it basically cut and paste the proposal given to them. But we said that's okay. Now the 300 shillings is out of the way.
Right.
Now what we need to do now is to get a group to go around the 290 constituencies and challenge young people to become the people to get voters' cards. ID, then voters' cards.
Yeah.
So that in 2027, they are prepared to vote, they are prepared to be candidates, and they are prepared to protect their victory.
All right.
Come with me.
Just before you continue, there's a call coming in from Homa Bay County. Let me get the name, Jackso. What's the name of our caller? Paul from Homa Bay. Good morning, Paul. What's your question or comment for Senator Okiya Omtatah?
Yeah, good morning. I am Paul Otto from Homa Bay County. I have actually two issues. Yeah, one is a question and one is a comment. Actually, my comment is that I am looking at 2027 elections for like the Gen Zs. It's like an election for the Gen Zs. Yeah, because they are really charged. But my fear is they don't have IDs. They are not registered properly for voting. And actually the voting day itself, these people don't present themselves on the voting center to vote. We have got history, we have got the records are there, that majority of them don't go to vote. So my fear is that we may be talking about these Gen Zs, but if we don't give them proper civic education that their voting will count, then we shall be like having a problem in 2027. Hao wakitoka nje kwenda huko ku demonstrate that their rights have been taken away, yet they didn't vote. So I just feel like they should undergo proper civic education. Wapewe pia voters card. My last thing is about question to Mheshimiwa Senator Okiya Omtatah. You know, Chapter 6 of the Constitution talks about integrity. And we know for sure that Mheshimiwa Gachagua had got integrity issues. He has been in the litigation corridors, litigating issues on the corridors of justice. And he knows that we are dealing with a cunning government that do not obey court orders. So if our constitution gives you a leeway to interrogate Mheshimiwa Gachagua in the Senate, then you run away, you take a step that I am not party to this, this is a lynch mob, yet he has got integrity issues. Why did you run away? Yet when these cases are taken to the court, you fear orders will come out and the government shall not take full responsibility of the court orders. Why did you run away? This one makes you appear like a double speech leader. Paul Otto from Homa Bay County, please. Senator, anijibu hilo swali.
First of all, I did not run away. I took a stand for the rule of law. If you look at Article 150 clause 2 of the Constitution, it says that the deputy president shall be, the procedure for impeaching the president shall apply to the deputy president with the necessary modifications. You require a special law for impeaching the deputy president. We did not have that law. So what were we using to impeach the Gachagua? If we don't believe, if we really believe in the rule of law, can you say that for Gachagua we are going to disregard that requirement that the procedure must apply with the necessary modifications? Where are those necessary modifications?
What if someone says it was okay as is, it was not necessary to modify?
No, that's a requirement of the drafters of the Constitution. Because they realize that Gachagua does not enjoy the immunity Ruto enjoys. You see?
Yeah.
In terms of moral capacity of Gachagua, I agree he had got issues. But was that the right forum? No. You must give the devil his due. In my world, you give the devil his due.
Right.
You don't do things so that the end justifies the means. The means must justify the end. That's the word I believe in. The other thing, that he's pleading necessity, that was necessary. To me, necessity is the plea of the slave and the creed of the tyrant. They tell you it was necessary to do this. I ran away because it was necessary. I killed him because it was necessary. It should never be necessary. There has to be due process. Article 41 of the Constitution, 47, clause 1 of the Constitution demands that.
Necessity is the plea of
The slave.
the slave
And the creed of the tyrant.
The tyrant. Okay.
Yes, that's basically that. I'm paraphrasing some Englishman. I think 1887. He said that on the floor of the House of Commons. It was called Pitt the Younger, with the Prime Minister of England, and they had similar situations. And he said, "We cannot plead necessity. We have got due process."
Yeah.
It's only tyrants who plead necessity, and it's only slaves who accept necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But free people have
There's no
due process.
necessity. Yes. I wanted to ask you about going it alone.
There's Humphrey.
Oh, there's Humphrey. I wanted to ask about the possibility of joining a coalition, forming one.
With Maraga especially. But let's get that call from Humphrey.
Thank you for that. Let's get the call from Humphrey. Agri or Humphrey? Humphrey. Okay, Humphrey Makweni, good morning. Question or comment for Senator Omtatah this morning? Okay, looks like we've.
All right.
Looks like
He's
we've lost
dropped.
him. Okay. Yes.
I've told you earlier,
Maraga and
kuuza
Omtatah.
sura
Versus kuuza sera.
kuuza sera. I'm not going kuuza sura. Kwata my sura is very bad. It can make votes disappear.
Why would you say that? Sure.
So we want to kuuza sera.
He formed a presidential exploratory committee to tell him. Maybe they told him.
So we want to sell. Well, my committee has reached, I think, 31 counties are still. We are still moving on. It's a bit expensive, and so I look for money and there from my businesses. But we're about to finish the remaining 16. The verdict is positive. So far, the initial, the preliminary report I've seen is positive. So the only place I might have challenges from what I've done is Kisii, where there's a very huge Matiang'i wave. But the rest of the country, I think, I'm acceptable. So there's that room. But that's not important. What's important is what am I offering? And me, my offer is that we implement the Constitution. We put Kenya on a pedestal to pursue material progress. We want to see a rich country. How do we do that? What are our comparative advantages? How do we get out of agriculture being the backbone of the economy to a service industry? Agriculture is poverty. Agriculture should be for food sovereignty. See how we create food. But for survival, we cannot have a whole country in subsistent mode. You see? So we need to go into the service industry. We need to clean up our banking. We need to clean up our electricity, the cost and the availability and stability. We need to clean up our roads. We need to provide infrastructure for people who don't drive, so that they can maybe ride a bicycle to work and back, to make them more productive. So we need to tweak those things. We need to engage in public transport. We cannot have Nairobi governed with the chaos we see every day. People must be able to move to work and from work efficiently. We need to know that time is the most limited resource available, and we must see how we can harness it. We need to create discipline, those kind of things. So those things will come up. And so when I see an agenda that is tied to that, I'll fall behind that agenda.
Okay.
So far?
So far, I've not seen. Because everybody's talking about cousins.
Maraga is not
talking about cousins.
No, everybody has come out, has talked about cousins. I've not seen Maraga associated with anybody. Those groups that have associated together and come out publicly have talked about cousins.
Have you seen those posters that have been doing the rounds? Maraga and Omtatah.
I've seen them, but that is a tools of exposition for an individual. So an individual exposing their preferences,
right?
Which is okay.
Yes.
But I have had discussions with Maraga's team, and I'm telling them what we need to do first of all. Do we have an agreement of minds? Or is it just because Maraga is not tainted, Omtatah is not tainted?
So you come together.
Yeah.
We have
and maybe we
Humphrey.
have not had an opportunity to be tainted.
Yes, we want to hear more about those conversations within the limited time we have. But we have Humphrey from Makweni on the line. Humphrey, please go ahead and share your question or comment for Senator Omtatah.
Good morning. I'm calling to make a contribution. First of all, I want to congratulate Senator Omtatah for being the people's voice all through, because as long as I've known him, he has been the voice of the people. That is great, because sometimes Kenyans are on their own and there's nobody to stand for them. And Omtatah has been outstanding on that. Secondly, listening to the voice of the Gen Z on the demonstrations yesterday, the biggest problem is accountability. Kenyans just need accountability from the leadership, nothing else. Because the biggest problem we are having, that the leaders have become so boastful and so proud that they think Kenyans are just they don't mean anything. So that is what brings a lot of anger to Kenyans. And many of the Gen Zs were asking accountability. And then one thing is that people have gone to school, people were promised jobs, people were promised good lives, but now they are not seeing that. So that's the biggest problem. And when people are tired, they can do anything. That's why you can see the young men and women are on the street, because they hoped for a better life, but they can't see it.
Thank you.
So, Omtatah, we want to thank you for having been there. But now, as you said, as you put it clearly, that what we need is just accountability from the president. Let him lead using the constitution and the laws of the country. Protests are protected by the law. The role of the police is to give security to the people as they demonstrate. But now when the police come in and they are the ones who, because looking at the statistics, the numbers of people who died, they died by bullets. Bullets from who? From the people who are supposed to protect them.
Yep.
That's what brings a lot of anger to the Kenyans.
Yep.
That was just my contribution to add on the voice of the people that is carried by Omtatah, Senator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Humphrey.
Thank you. And that accountability is in that good governance thing. Yeah, all the things are there. And for hopelessness, there was that girl who was talking on social media, talking about how she has struggled to go through education, whatever. Now she's hopeless. If we continue having agriculture as the backbone of this economy, then we should close our universities. Let people go do basic education where they can read the prescription on a pesticide. I know that this is a pesticide and not an acaricide. And then be able to go to the uni. But if you're going to train people to PhD to university, we must create a service industry to absorb them. That's what we are doing. We cannot have an infrastructure for a modern economy and tell people that the backbone of our economy is peace and farming, subsistence. No, agriculture should remain for food sustainability, sovereignty, and we go on in the service industry. Look at Kiambu, a stone's throw away from Nairobi. They are accusing people in Central Province of being drunk, young people and whatever. If they don't bring, what should they do? Where are the factories where they are telling them go to work? Where are they? You have seen lands in Ruai, whatever, those where they used to work. The subsistence economy has been taken up by floods that they can't even afford to live in there. You see, we must build factories. We must place ourselves strategically. And that's why they called in the national anthem, Kenya is Tahili Heshima. Means we must do something. And if you go back and read when the Americans were getting a constitution, there was an old man called Benjamin Franklin. He had been an agitator for that. He was an old man in his 80s, even with very severe gout. Some people asked him, now, Benjamin, you have succeeded. What have you given us? Is it a monarchy or a democracy? Benjamin answered and said, is it a monarchy or a republic? He said, it's a republic if you can keep it. A republic is an ongoing concern. It's a work, everyday work, to keep that word, the Republic of Kenya, in our name. And to block the idea of a banana being introduced is an ongoing job. And as for the youth bulge is demanding industry. It's demanding new ways of creating wealth. And I'm telling you, you take factory jobs, they're better paying than these agricultural things. If you create factories, you'll find that Kenya has too much land, and you'll consolidate that land. People will move away, and we offer to sell, they'll move to urbanized areas.
And then you'll have commercial agriculture.
Then you can have commercial agriculture.
Okay.
So we must look at that thing, not to have people now like, look at Meru, very fertile. But look at the land fragmentation in Meru. It cannot go to the next generation. The people end up with rubber stamps, whereby with the postage stamps, whereby when you stretch your hands, you trespass in somebody's compound.
Okay, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Senator Okiya Omtatah, the senator from Busia County, has been our guest for this hour, just reflecting on what's happening in the country at present and looking at where do we go from here. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we'll be back here, God willing, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's Mariam Latif, Janet.
What?
Mariam Latif, Janet
Bishar.
Bishar.
Bishar,
And Eric Mbogwa.
and Eric Mbogwa.
Yes.
Have a good one.